Connor, congratulations on your new film, In the Fire.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on and having an interest in the movie.
Hey, not a problem, not a problem. Last time I spoke to you, it was for
Queensland, right?
yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's been a few years, but I'm sure we've both been very busy.
It seems like you definitely are. So tell me, what was the original idea for In the Fire? What sparked this?
Well, I think my wife told me this the other day. She said, "Oh, everything you write always has to do with exiles and people being outcast." And I was like, I self-reflected on it. It was like, oh yeah, you're right. I went through some formative years where I felt like an exile myself and was bullied a lot. And I feel like that works its way into my writing, whether I wanted to or not. And this movie is definitely no different. I mean, the fundamental characters of this are this young, disturbed boy who's different from everyone else in his remote community in South America, and for that difference, he is, what he's ostracized from his community. He's blamed for everything that goes wrong, to the point where the local zealot priest who thinks he's a hero is trying to perform an exorcism on this kid to save his community, and this doctor from New York, who's also kind of an exile in her own way, who's a doctor in a time when there weren't female doctors, who's a psychologist in a time when psychology was not respected, shows up to try to help this kid, and these two outcasts form a relationship. But it also escalates the sort of, then there's the science versus religion aspect of the movie, and those are things that still creating a lot of friction in our world today, fact versus belief, and that leads to the conflict in the movie.
I know. I was very fascinated about the science versus religion because that's always been a debate in when it comes to like exorcism, right? Because I guess the Inquisition, the demons and exorcism, they find out that a lot of the victims just had mental illness.
Right, yeah, things in hindsight gain some clarity, but at the time, people saw other people who were different and said, okay, you're different because the devil's inside of you. We got to fix you. And they tried to do that, but killed them in the process, or burned them at the stake or what have you. And to some degree, we still do that in society. We do it in a different way. I was talking about sort of bullying in my formative years, and okay, in this movie, this doctor, Amber Heard's character Grace, she sticks up for her convictions, and she gets dragged through the public square and whipped and beaten for her convictions. And now we do it online, on social media. We do it on a global scale, but sadly, we still do it.
Now, a lot of your projects, you always incorporate, Spanish themes into it with languages and so on. And I remember your last film, you did the same thing.
Yeah,
But
quite a bit.
but in this case, when you try to do a period, how did you want to handle this as a period horror piece? And was it filmed in South America, or is it closer to the border, like between
Um,
U.S. and Mexico?
Mix, actually. We, even though it's set in South America, we actually ended up shooting it in Guatemala. We shot half of the film in Italy and half in Guatemala. For me, I'm really much more interested as a storyteller in creating building a new world, a new atmosphere that maybe people haven't seen as much of, as opposed to going back to New York City in 1890s or something, where okay, we've seen a movie set there. So for this movie, decided to build this, what I like to call the gaucho Western atmosphere. So we're taking aspects of old Westerns, except it's happening in South America, where now, okay, you've got the Western stuff happening, Western movie stuff, but it's got the Spanish culture. Latin America is incredibly religious, so it's an even more extreme version to heighten the conflict between science and faith. and sort of pulling from those different subgenres. You know, we've seen movies about demonic possession before. I love The Exorcist and The Omen, things like that. But in this movie, it's a little more ambiguous as to whether this boy, is he in fact possessed by the devil, or like you said, does he just have what the modern audience and what Doctor Amber's character of the Doctor interprets as some sort of a mental illness that's making him seem different from everybody. And we kind of live in the gray area a bit. Maybe the audience, like Grace, is being asked, did I just see something that has a practical explanation, or did I see something supernatural that I can't explain with my science? And if I did, is that bad? Is it evil?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. One of your particular scenes, and I'm not going to go into deep in the spoilers, is I'm curious on how you actually handled that. Was a structure burning down per se? Literally in the fire. So, was that a controlled fire scenario or was that CGI?
Oh, controlled fire. Yeah, yeah, and then we ended up burning. We burned that building down to the ground. Yeah, so we built our own barn. It was a tricky scene because we had horses in there, we had actors in there, crew, so we couldn't let the fire get away from us for obvious safety reasons. But I think whenever you do CGI flames, if there isn't some practical fire in the scene, it looks pretty hokey pretty fast. So, and we wanted to maintain as realistic of a look for the movie as possible. So we had a mixture of flame bars and real flames on the building, with some CGI in certain places where we're growing the fire bigger than it actually was, or in places that were very close to the cast. Um, and we also had the structure starts to fall down while the people are in it, and so we had some beams that were structural to keep the thing standing, but we also had some faux beams that were like on a lever so that when we wanted to, these big flaming beams could just crash down.
I simply love movie magic. Now, tell us how you managed to score Amber into this film. I mean, that is such a great
Yeah,
casting there.
she's perfect for this. And whenever a big movie star signs on to an indie project, they are giving you a lot of trust, so it doesn't ever come lightly. I met Amber on I had written a TV pilot about a Colombian serial killer, and met her on that project. Even though that show never happened, we met each other. I realized, okay, here's this, wonderfully smart person. She loves history. I'm a big history nerd. And, she had lived in Mexico City for a time. She spoke fluent Spanish. And I thought, God, I think she's going to love In Fire. So I gave her that script, and, she immediately connected with the tone of the movie and with the character of Grace. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that she connected with a character who is a fearless truth teller, who has strong convictions, but who isn't believed, and who gets in the movie she's dragged through the public square and whipped and beaten. And Amber has now gone through that in her own life for years, and so she made a very quick connection to this character, and brought a lot to it. And ultimately, I think she played it marvelously.
Yeah, that is true. Well, let me leave with one more thought here, Connor. The boy is fascinating, and how you shot the boy is even more fascinating because I noticed that you focused on the eyes of the boy, and I think that was very deliberate. Could you talk about that, and did you do anything to the actor's eyes to make it kind of pop out?
Yeah, thank you for noticing the subtle aspects of the cinematography. Um, as they say, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they're also a distancing. Something like if you've ever met someone who I had a very good friend who had a lazy eye from an accident when he was a kid, and once I'd been friends with him for several years, I didn't even really notice it. But when you first meet someone who has anything like that, it can be very disconcerting. It can really create a lot of distance. You're not trying to bully this person, but you're sort of like, oh, you know. And so we wanted to have something that, like, right away when we meet this boy, not only is he disturbed, not only does the priest think he's a demon, not only does it seem like he's, emotionally, psychologically damaged, but you meet him, and when you first lock eyes with him, you're put off. And so he was wearing contact lenses that have two different size pupils. So he had one pupil that's always overly large, and then one that's like a dot. And basically made a situation for the actor, this boy Lorenzo, who's only 11 years old, basically acted this whole movie terrifically blind. You can barely see when you're wearing these kinds of contact lenses. And so he's basically doing the whole movie blind. And we leaned into that with the cinematography to try to create that distance, so that when we meet this character, we're put off by him, we're alarmed. But over the course of the movie, you see him more and more, and it's less strange, and you kind of get used to seeing him that way, and that's just who he is. That doesn't mean that he's possessed by the devil.
I love this fascination of your film, Connor. Thank you very much for carrying this conversation with us. You know what? I can't wait to talk to you again in your next movie.
Yeah, see you on the next one, man. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
you.